Hello and welcome into another fantasy hockey video. Today we're going to have our weekly discussion over players I want to talk about, along with I believe I have two questions in this video from listeners who have commented on the previous video. Do comment on this video as well. The next video I strictly want to do questions from the viewers, so any questions you have at all about fantasy, leave them down below. But these are some players I want to talk about. And if you like the channel, please consider subscribing. Just reached 500. Thank you guys so much for that. Really appreciate that. And like the video if you like these videos. The first player I want to talk about is Joe Pavelski. Now, Joe Pavelski came out of the gates on fire. You look at the game log right there. 4-point game, 3-point game. Then extended his point streak to 5 games. Had 1 game without points. 4-point game again, 1-point game. And then he's gone kind of cold recently. And that's kind of the thing that I want to talk about with Joe Pavelski is this great start is most likely not sustainable for him. He is a good player and should be pretty productive this year, considering that Tyler Seguin is out of the lineup. And Joe Pavelski should be a pretty good point getter. The question is whether you sell high on Pavelski or if you just ride him out because he should be a solid player. Now, I'm of the belief that Pavelski's name value means you're probably not getting the biggest return for him, but you should definitely fish and see what you can get for Pavelski if you can get something maybe a little better than him. I think that is possible if you are a Pavelski owner, but if you cannot trade him, I still think he is a solid player to have because it looks like Tyler Seguin is going to be out for the majority of the season and might only get back just before the playoffs, so he should be good for you throughout the whole duration of the season, assuming Tyler Seguin's injury report is pretty accurate. So those are my thoughts on Joe Pavelski. Try to trade for something better, but he's not bad to hold on to at all. JVR, I'm pretty sure is not going to keep up the pace he's on either. 18 points, and I want to say around like 14 games. Don't quote me on that game total, but he is the Flyers' leading scorer right now, and he's the second leading power play time on ice getter for the Flyers right now. But the thing is, his 5-on-5 play, he's playing with Scott Laughton and Joel Farabee. Joel Farabee has been inconsistent. He's a rookie this year. Looks good, but inconsistent. Scott Laughton, definitely not what you want to play with if you're on the Flyers. You'd rather play with someone like Couturier or maybe higher up in the lineup with a Drew, a Konechny, Voracek. There's just, you got Joel Farabee, who can be dynamic. You got Scott Laughton, who is an okay center, no doubt about that. But I do think there is going to be a little bit of a fall off in James Van Riemsdyk's production. I don't think I'm surprising anyone when I say that. He should, however, be a pretty good goal scorer going forward, though, because we do know what JVR does in front of the net on the power play for the Flyers. Very effective in that role. Should be a good player going forward, but definitely someone who is probably going to, I'd be very shocked if he didn't fall off this point pace that he is on. We then go into the first question I'm addressing. This is Price or Hellebuyck. Now, you got Connor Hellebuyck, who is underperforming compared to last year's standards with a .911 save percentage, and .255 goals against is not bad at all. And then you got Carey Price, who's just not playing that good so far with an .896 save percentage and a .284 goals against average. And it's Hellebuyck. It's Hellebuyck every day of the week right now. It was Hellebuyck going into the year. It's Hellebuyck now. And it would be closer if Price was playing better. But if you're in a points league, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, I'm a points league player, it's Connor Hellebuyck. This man starts a ton of games. He started 9 of the 12 so far, which is 75%, compared to Price, who has started 6 of 11, and he hasn't started a higher percentage of games because he has not been that good. And Jake Allen's out here with a 1.81 goals against and a .940 save percentage, playing out of his mind, which, if Connor Hellebuyck has a few bad nights, they are not giving Brossoit the net. And I hope I pronounce his name right. I always butcher it, but I think I got it right there. Jake Allen, they might give a little run here because he is an established NHL player who has shown hot streaks in the past and has shown if you ride him for a bit, you can get good production out of him. And it doesn't hurt the Canadians to rest Price if Jake Allen's playing good, and then Price will eventually recapture his form, no doubt about that. But the start total is just going to be so much in Hellebuyck's favor that, in my opinion, it's not that close right now, especially with how Price is playing. It's Connor Hellebuyck. We then move on to another goalie. We're talking about 2 more goalies today. Jacob Markstrom's a guy who I was kind of big on going into the draft. I don't believe I used him in my top 10 for goalies, but I feel like now I'm going to say it. I think Jake Markstrom is going to end as a top 10 goalie this year. I don't think I'm being bold after what has happened so far saying that. The Calgary Flames, as you can see in the division standings on the left, I organized that by point percentage because they played less games. They are the 4th leading team in point percentage, barely behind, a decent bit behind Winnipeg when talking about the percentages. But they're just a pretty good team. Good enough in the North Division to the point where Jacob Markstrom is going to get wins. He started 10 of 12 games, which is a very high percentage. 916 save percentage, which is very solid. 2.5 goals against, which is also solid. He's looked very good. And, no complaints about Jake Markstrom. Should be a top 10 goalie, and you should be very happy if you were one of the ones who was high on Jake Markstrom moving to a new team, especially after the great year he had with Vancouver last year. And I'm sure Vancouver wishes they had him this year, seeing how they're getting very inconsistent goalie play. We then move into a bit of a surprise this year, and this is Kevin Lankinen. And Kevin Lankinen came out of nowhere, and if there was a team to have a goalie come out of nowhere, it was probably Chicago, because all the opportunity in the world. No one there was established as a starter. Kevin Lankinen is now 67% rostered, plus 13% in the last day. You look at his last 5 games, 3 wins, and he got put in relief duty and played very good, but he didn't get a result there because he wasn't on the ice for when the goals are scored and all that. It's weird how that works, but in his last 4 starts, he's 3-1. He's dropped good games in all but one. 933 save percentage on the year in about 8 games. 2.17 goals against. He's been very good. Now, he is playing behind the Blackhawks, so there are going to be a few tough nights in his future. But there's no reason for them to take the net away from him anytime soon. No one's really challenging him. And he looks like a very good pickup. And if you're lucky enough to be in one of the leagues where he is not rostered, he's definitely worth a pickup because he's starting the majority of the games for them. And he should start the majority of the games going forward. So Kevin Lankinen has been a nice surprise. Kind of like if you watch football, I know a lot of people are Canadian, and I know not all of the Canadians watch football. But if you watch football, it's kind of like the Jaguars in the NFL. They had James Robinson come out of nowhere and was a very good fantasy running back on a not-so-good team. Kind of what Kevin Lankinen's doing. And it is the NHL, so you never know. If he plays very good for the whole season, you can sneak into a playoff spot, especially in that Central Division. We then move into the second question, the second of 2 questions that I took in this video. This is Erik Karlsson. What would you do with Erik Karlsson in Points League? And also, do you think Adam Larsson is going to keep up a similar blocks pace? I'm going to ignore the second part of that question, just because I don't play categories anymore, so I'm not really too sure if Adam Larsson can keep up that block pace. That is my area of expertise personally, so I'm going to stay clear of that. As for Erik Karlsson, this is a tough situation to be in if you have him, because if you look at his game log, or maybe you don't think it's tough. I think it's tough, though. You look at it, he's now 5 straight games without a point. He's on the first power play unit. He's on the second pair in San Jose. But he leads the team in power play time on ice, which makes it kind of hard for me to cut him. For the pure fact, I could see him recapturing form and having a good stretch here and there. And if you're in a league where you own 4 to 6 defensemen, which I think most leagues are around that range, you start 4, you bench 2. It really depends on your roster sizes. They vary a lot. I know a lot of people run their own custom leagues with wacky settings and all that. So it makes it a tough thing to drop Erik Karlsson when you know the upside he can have, and you see that he's getting the opportunity. It makes me think he's not going to ever really reach what he used to be, but he can still reach to the point where you can have him in your lineup and be confident. I feel like that's going to come. I don't think he necessarily has a lot of trade value either, just for the pure fact that, he has been playing pretty bad. If you sell him, you're selling him for very low. If I'm going to move on from Erik Karlsson, I'm going to wait for him to have a few good games in a row, because he will do that eventually, and then I try to trade him with someone who needs defense. But I don't think it's the worst move in the world to keep Erik Karlsson for the duration of the season and have him be your 4th, 5th defenseman on your team if you can afford that. It's kind of an awkward situation to be in because it's kind of hard to cut bait. But it isn't a fun situation to be in. I'm glad I don't own him in any leagues. We then move on to a brighter spot, which is Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is the 6th, well, actually, he's tied for 5th in the league in points, 17 points in 16 games. He's playing out of his mind. I picked him as the 3rd top. I picked him to finish 3rd amongst defensemen. And right now he is looking like the front runner to finish number 1. I think Cale Makar has a shot to do that still. I know the Avalanche have had some games postponed, but let's just talk about Quinn Hughes here. He's running the power play at a very efficient rate. He's a very simple player, but a very dynamic player at the same time. I know that might sound weird, but he never really makes the wrong decision on the power play. Always makes the right pass. He doesn't always overcomplicate things. You don't see, I should say this, for someone who has the puck at the point as much as him, he doesn't make as many mistakes as a lot of other guys, and that's a key. They keep the puck in the zone, he makes the right reads, passes it to the right player, and that's why you see him with 16 assists in 16 games, and he's one of the league leaders. He's up there. I believe he's like second, I want to say he's second behind Draisaitl, maybe McDavid too. But, you know, what's McDavid? Is that 16? No, it's 18. So he's third in the league in assists right now, only behind McDavid and Draisaitl, who are pretty good players. You may have heard of them. And, you know, I've been big on Quinn Hughes. I've been big on Cale Makar. And it's really good to see this new wave of defensemen come up and dominate the league. You're seeing Heiskanen play pretty well, maybe not have the most points in the world. Charlie McAvoy playing well, not going to be up here with Quinn Hughes and Makar in points, but it's good to see a breath of fresh air at the defense position, seeing a lot of young stars really blossom into great players. And Quinn Hughes is one of them, and if you got him, you are a lucky guy because he's doing great things for you on your D. We then move on to another Vancouver guy, and this is Brock Boeser. Now, Brock Boeser is one of those guys coming out of North Dakota State. You knew he had talent. You knew he could score at a very high rate. It's just he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And it looks like this year he may have the potential to be a top scorer in the league in the goals category, and he's at 15 points in 15 games, or 15 points in 16 games, my bad. So he's almost at a point per game, which that would be a first for him to be above that. And if he can pot the goals, he's going to be a very high-ranking fantasy player. And he's someone who I think is worth trading for. I bet there's a lot of owners who have him who are pretty skeptical of whether he can keep it up and whether he can stay healthy. I personally think Brock Boeser is someone to target if you are looking to add some scoring, especially at the wing position, right wing. Very valuable. And he's playing on the top line with Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, who were both going fairly high in the draft this year. Elias Pettersson, a bit of a slow start. He has now picked it back up. You got JT Miller, who is just a very solid player who puts up points consistently. And they're just having things roll for them right now offensively in Vancouver for this group. And they're on the first power play unit, all of them. They're getting their opportunity there. And Brock Boeser, I think, should continue his scoring ways. And I'm pretty big on Brock Boeser. Hopefully he doesn't have another freak injury like that one where he hit the boards with his back or anything like that, because very talented player, and, you know, we want to see talented players succeed for the most part in this league. So that's all I have for you today on players I had thoughts on. If you have players you want me to talk about in the next video, please leave a comment down below. I love answering your questions, and I hope the next video I can answer your questions. So that's all I have for you today. The next video will probably be out on Saturday, so you have that to look forward to, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out and enjoy the hockey.